Welcome to episode number 38. My name is Dale.
And I'm Heather.
And today we're going to be talking about fighting your outlaws.
Okay, maybe we're not fighting our outlaws, but we're going to talk about dealing with our in-laws and extended families and things like that. So this is one of the struggles that Dale and I had like crazy when we first got married, was that he was brought up in a very different culture than I was brought up, and a very different family dynamics than what I was when I was growing up.
Yeah, so my family, I was raised, I had a brother and a sister, and I was the middle child out of them. But not only that, I had my grandparents who lived with us, so we were a family of 7. Every weekend we were always with aunts and uncles and cousins, and we were sort of one big happy family. And so that's what I was used to.
Right, and I, as an only child, my mom and dad got divorced when I was young. My mom got remarried a couple times. I don't have any brothers or sisters. We moved away from my family, and so it was just me and my mom and my dad and all my aunts, and I only have 2 aunts and an uncle, and my grandparents had passed away. So like totally opposite ends of the universe when it came to family. And so in my upbringing, I was very independent, and I made my own choices, and I did what I wanted to do, and I took care of myself. And, I was just very, very independent.
And on my side of things, and my side of my side of the family sort of dynamic was there was someone always around. It was a party 24/7.
Always taking care of you.
Yeah, I guess so. Hey, yeah, I guess so. I never really made my bed. My grandma did that. My mom did my laundry. I kind of had a live-in service, like a maid service, and so I lived a pretty cushy sort of family growing up. I loved it. I appreciated it. I probably took it for granted a lot of the times, but I always had family surrounding me, so I was always just used to that. I remember nights there were times we didn't have anybody around, and I was sad because I didn't have that party atmosphere or that family atmosphere. So that's what I was used to growing up. I always had people around, and every weekend we partied, and so that's what I was used to.
Yeah, and his family has a very great influence on decisions, and this was just my take, was that because I was so independent, so I'm one extreme, and then for you it was like, well, you got to do this and you got to do that, and you had to drive your mom to work and pick up your dad's beer and like do all these things for people, and it's amazing. And that was one of the things that I loved about you and your family, was that you just had this amazing, and you do still have this beautiful, amazing family. But then when we became a family, this had some tension points, because now it was like, I still felt like, okay, I'm still independent, and I have my little girl, and then we have our son, and
we were a family.
We were a family. And I think one of the things was that there was still obligations to stay out late. Even we have little kids, and we were the young, like the first to have kids and stuff. Well, your sister had a child too.
Yeah. Yep.
But she grew up in that atmosphere, so that wasn't a big deal to her. But I felt like my daughter needed a bedtime at a good time, like at a specific time, and supper is at earlier, and all these, like, I just had a very structured idea of what family was like. And for Dale,
For me, it was like, when are we eating supper? I don't know yet.
I think it's like 8 o'clock is supper time.
Yeah, when growing up, it was usually 8 p.m. And I know that my family now, they eat at 8 p.m.
Yeah.
And you can eat chocolate and ice cream and anything at any time of the day, because that's just what you did. And like, so I'm not saying that there was no structure, but there was no structure.
And if you had a fit and you wanted ice cream, there's Lola. She's going to give you ice cream just to make you happy.
Lola is my mom. And so, yeah, I mean, that's just sort of how the upbringing was. I mean, a lot of the grandparents they'd rather not have a kid cry. They would just rather feed them.
What they give them,
whatever they want. Whatever they want.
Oh, my word. And I was just the opposite. So we obviously had some problems here.
Yeah, there's a lot of family dynamic clashes.
Yeah, and ideas about upbringing and children and everything. So this is what we're talking about today. I know it's taking a while for us to get there.
Yeah.
Just wanted to really explain to you that we get it. So if you're going through a similar struggle, we get it because we've had to really walk through this stuff.
Yeah.
So one of the things was that what we had to realize, and we learned this in one of our very first parenting or marriage classes, was that when you're married in a married relationship, this is now your new family. Mm-hmm. This is not that you leave your old family, but this is your new family, and your choices and decisions that you make needs to be in the best interest of your wife and your husband and your kids, because that's your family.
Right.
And if your choices and decisions that you make and you've decided on together upsets your extended family, it's okay.
It's going to be okay.
It's going to be okay.
And I didn't, that was a hard thing for me to compute, because growing up, like other people when like my cousins, when they got married, everybody was just one big happy family. Mm-hmm. And so you're part of the family. Everything that we do, you do. Everything that we eat, you eat. So everything was always still the way I was raised. We were all just one big happy family. And so when Heather and I got married, it was a little bit of a struggle for me to adjust to the idea that this is now my family, and I had to do a lot of different things, not to combat my family, but it was different from what we were all used to.
Yeah, and I think it's a cultural thing. So if you are married,
I'm Filipino, by the way. Just if you can't tell, but I'm Filipino.
So if you're married into another culture, you're going to definitely relate to this. Mm-hmm. And so we love Dale's family. Like, they're amazing. But we did have some problems because we can't, our daughter needed to go to school, and she can't stay, like 8:00 is not, and it's just not, it doesn't work to have supper, and bedtime is 8:00, and you can't have supper at 8:00 because it's bedtime, and
you can't have ice cream either.
No ice cream. And then there's baths, and there's stories, and there's just,
it's like there's a routine.
There was a routine and structure, and also like discipline, like if you have a fit, you don't get what you want. It's actually the opposite. Right. And so this was a struggle. So I remember very specifically, we were visiting with Dale's parents, and we had just learned this information. And so we're working this through, mm-hmm. and we're visiting Dale's parents, and it's like time to go. And our little son decides that's when he's going to have a fit and want ice cream.
And that was at 8:00 at night.
Yes. And Dale and I looked at each other and went, oh crap, because Lola is already getting the scoop and she's going to get ice cream for the kid that's crying, because we don't want anybody to be upset.
Yeah.
And so Dale and I looked at each other, and it was because this is his family. This is another point that we really want to stress, because this is his family. It's his responsibility to deal with his family.
Yeah. So basically, I had to go against what they're used to and how I was raised. I had to change things. I had to make a different choice than what they're used to, and so I had to stand up. I actually had to say, "No, Mom, it's late and we have to go." And then she looked at me like, what? Like, no, I'm getting him ice cream. I'm like, sorry, Mom. But no, he can't have ice cream right now. Like, first of all, he's like 2 and it's late and he can't have ice cream because it's going to mess him up. And so she said, okay, no, not a problem.
And that's what's amazing about Dale's families. They're awesome.
Yeah, my mom is awesome and she's very graceful. My dad is awesome, very graceful. And so they just said, okay, mm-hmm. not a problem. And so we walked away from there kind of looking at each other like, okay, I guess we'll see how that goes.
Yeah.
And to be honest, there was a little bit of tension in between our families.
There was.
It was so hard to go through for me.
And it's not about just the ice cream, but it's not just ice cream. Like they want us to have dinner, and we had to say no often because it's a weeknight and they have dinner at 8 and it just doesn't work. So we said lots of no's, and Dale explained like this is like 8 o'clock is when our kids go to bed, and like we have dinner at 5. Usually when they invited us, we've already had supper. We've already had supper, cleaned up, jammies on, and it's like, hey guys, come over for dinner. It's like,
we would even bring our kids in pajamas sometimes.
Yeah, we'll bring their pajamas
just because we know.
So I guess the point that we want to make is that sometimes you just need to make some hard decisions, but it is important. Okay, I have to stress this. It's important.
I know where you're going.
That the husband
not the husband.
Okay.
The child, like the person, like me, like if it was with your mom, you would have to say something.
I would deal with my family.
Yes.
And Dale needs to deal with his family.
Yes.
So when it comes to changes or conflict or just disagreements, or if your family is saying something that is hurting your spouse, then it's your responsibility to deal with that family member. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So say, just an example, that Dale's mom came after me and was harping on me about something. It would be Dale's responsibility to talk to his mom. It's not mine. He needs to protect me. And so vice versa. So if my mom is barking up, like beaking off with Dale, then it's my responsibility to deal with my mom. In extreme cases, and your words aren't being listened to and you're struggling, then you come together as a united front and say, no, this is the way that it's going to be.
Yeah, and there has been times where we've had to deal with something like that, and I had to talk to Heather and be like, okay, Heather, can I step in?
And I said, no, not yet.
Yes.
And then he came again. Heather, can I step in? No, not yet. And it took a few times until it's like, I can't deal with this person. Yes, right. I need your help. Can you please step in and say something?
So then that was my green light to sort of, okay, I can step in now, respectfully, knowing that like that's still her family member.
Yes.
So I can't just go to town and go nuts and like rip a strip out of them, but respectfully talk to them and whatever the situation is.
Just like, and so that's the one thing that I think that sometimes couples get confused with, and I think it just simplifies things. It makes sense. It's you deal with your own family.
Yeah, that's a really good way to say it. I've seen it over and over. Like we'll be with friends or people that we know, or even people just outside kind of thing. Like it's the one spouse is dealing with the in-law while the child or the person, the adult, is just sitting back and watching it happen. And like that's very unhealthy. That's toxic. It's gonna ruin relationships. And then the in-law is gonna come home, and then like the child-in-law, I don't even know how to say it.
It's complicated.
So
the
complicated.
in-law is gonna not like that person's wife or husband, and it just causes so much problems. So your mom will always love you. Your dad will always love you. So it's super important that you're the one that's talking to them, because it's easy to get alliances going, and you don't want your house divided, because the scripture says house divided against itself cannot stand. And I truly believe that. And so it's important that you are a united front and you decide what your boundaries are and what's okay for your family. And I think the quickie of the day, I think I said it once, but we're gonna like say it again so that it really gets in your head.
So the quickie of the day is that the decisions you make, are they right and are they good for your family? Is that good?
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah, that's a really good thing to have in your mind. So the decisions that you make it's right and good for your family, regardless if it doesn't make everyone else happy.
Right.
It's good for your family. And sometimes when you make a decision that is good for your family, that is contrary or different than what you're used to, there is a ripple effect. Yeah. Some people are not going to be happy with it. But what we found is that there's pushback. People might be upset. They might say this, and you just stand firm and say, no, this is our decision. And then over time, they actually really do tend to respect you for it.
That's true.
Yeah. And so it just kind of time will tell. I guess, but just to stay firm. This is our decision. This is what's right. This is what's good for our family. We love you. We respect you, but this is what we need to do right now and for our family to be healthy or whatever. And eventually they'll get on board and they will support you if they truly do care about you.